What's up, my babies? It's your homie Michael with take 2 of this video because my dumb and yet sexy ass decided that I did not want to check to make sure that I had good sound. So I have to drink twice for that. Glenmorangie. If anybody is a Scotch admirer, no, connoisseur, and has one that's not too strong to recommend, please leave it in the comments below. I'd like to try something else. I like Glenmorangie because it seems like it's a good beginner's Scotch, something that's not pronounced, it's not smoky or too peaty or something like that. I don't know how to describe it really, but I want to branch out, so nah, a little bit more. Bottoms up. And I got some on my sound device. Nice. All right, so today's video is going to be about my Eureka movies. And for those who don't know, for those who are especially US collectors, and you aren't familiar with a lot of UK boutique labels, mostly Arrow is probably definitely the most famous one. Indicator is getting up there, but I feel like a lot of people don't know Eurekas, and the reason why is because Eureka, a lot of their movies are region B. They haven't gotten on that region free game, or like in Arrow's case, started publishing in region A, so they're not as popular. But I think that a lot of collectors are missing out because to give some pros and cons about them is that, well, first to explain. So Eureka is a boutique label, but they don't just do, you know, the Masters of Cinema, which is their biggest label, which is their sub-label, as you might call it. They have a classics one, they have TV, and they have another one called Montage, which I believe is for more independent and contemporary movies, which I will leave a correction or an extrapolation in the comments below, or in the description actually, about it. But definitely their Masters of Cinema is the best one, and after that I would say classics. And I have both here, but definitely mostly Masters of Cinema. And some pros and cons about them, and I typed this up because I just don't want to sit here struggling in front of the camera with you guys. So, pros: they have good selection. They have great, famous, amazing movies. Things like Nosferatu, like Pier Paolo Pasolini. So Oedipus Rex is on there. I haven't seen it yet, but I've read enough about it that I've read that it's a great movie. But you know, stuff like that. More recent, Fistful of Dynamite, High Noon. You know, they have some Fritz Lang up in that B. The Passion of Joan of Arc, which until Criterion's recent, you know, last year release, it was Eureka's that was the one that everybody needed to check out and get. So they have good movies. They do free shipping to the US still, as far as I know. You know, knock on a fake chair recliner thing, not wood. But you know, I love that. They're the only UK label that does that, and I really appreciate it because it keeps the cost down low. It competes with Amazon UK, and the less money that you give to Amazon, the better. And their movies are really, really greatly. You're really paying, you know, not too much for what you're getting. You're getting the bang for your buck to a certain extent. And I'll go into that a little bit with the cons. But they have beautiful artwork. I really like their cover designs. And their booklets, which is one thing that I like about them, that I compare them to Criterion, is that they don't go out of print, really. Some of their limited editions do, and every once in a while they publish like a bigger box that has limited edition, and then after that they come out with the standard edition that still has a booklet in it. Not as big of a booklet, but still a booklet, and they keep it around. They don't, just do a first print run, and then after that you only get the movie and that's it. Which I really appreciate, because one thing with Arrow that I've been trying to avoid, or that I've just been iffy about getting, is that if you don't get it early enough, if you don't get a first print run, after they Arrow releases their stuff. I don't know why I'm touching my face in this time, but coronavirus. Yeah, if you don't get it early enough, you won't know. You might order something, hope you just cross your fingers and hope that you get the booklet, and then you might get disappointed with Arrow, which is one thing that I really want to avoid. I like those booklets. I want the whole package. And with Eureka, you're going to get that, regardless of whether or not it's been out a few years or not. Some cons, though, they don't release as often. Maybe I think even some months have gone and no announcement, actually, like every once in a while. But when they do announce, it's like 2 or 3 movies. So right now, the latest that I have from them is like 219. And I think they're like a little bit, like a couple after that was like at the end of the last year, I think. So whereas Indicator, they've been out like less than half the time or something like that, in terms of like how long they've existed, and they're almost up there. They're almost surpassing, if not already have surpassed Eureka's output. And Eureka is one of the first UK labels, if I'm not mistaken. So they have a slower output, but you compare that to also the fact that I appreciate that they keep the booklets around. They have more in their earlier releases really than later, have had a decent amount of movies go out of print, and that's really unfortunate. I've noticed, because I went through, there's a boutique Blu-ray website that lists all the releases, and they'll highlight which ones are out of print, and you'll see that for the most part it's mostly like the releases that are more out of print than newer, like the second half of the list. So it looks like they've gotten better at like keeping the rights. They have, which is one thing that I wish UK labels wouldn't have to do, but I get it. It's a smaller market. Is limited editions. I like limited editions because they always are stacked, and that's one great thing that beats a lot of UK labels compared to Criterion, and especially other Region A companies, is that when the UK labels like Arrow and Indicator and Eureka appear, is that when they do the limited editions, they will go all out. You will get like a 100-page book and like 2, sometimes 3 discs that have like a whole bunch of stuff on it, and it's great. It's great that you get all these stuff that really makes their version sometimes better than the Criterion versions. Like Fear and Loathing in Las Vegas is much more stacked than the not much more, because the Criterion I feel like has like 3 commentaries or something like that. So it's maybe not the best example, but the booklet is like twice the size in the Arrow limited edition, as well as it has an extra disc that has the For No Good Reason documentary on it, that once the limited edition Arrow goes out of print, that disc, if you want it, you're gonna have to find some other way to get it unless you want to pay extra money for it. So but the limited editions are nice. It's just that they're limited, and that sucks, especially when you are late to the game. I started collecting Arrow like not last year, so there are some early releases that I gotta pay a lot of money. I want that Decalogue. I don't want the new one. I want the older one. The same thing with the Fassbender box set that has that thick book and some other stuff. I could buy all of the standard releases, but those books really add a lot of value to me, especially as somebody who's interested in film history and trying to understand a movie as much as possible, or a filmmaker as much as possible. When you have these essays and these booklets that add more value, I think, to me personally, I love it. And so there's some movies like Arrow, when I got late in the game, I was buying movies and was dismayed to find out that some of the movies, I think, like my Night of the Hunter, didn't come with a booklet, and now I have to scour on eBay and other websites and sometimes they don't even list it. So I gotta message the seller and say, hey, does this one come with a booklet? And if they say no, I'm moving on, and it could take a while till I can find one, but I really want it. So limited editions kind of sometimes suck, and they have less supplements. A lot of the Eureka movies, I think one of the reasons why they're not as expensive is that they don't really come sometimes with a lot. Sometimes you just get a commentary and a trailer, or if you're lucky, like 1, maybe 2 interviews or an essay by like Tony Rayns or Neil Sinyard. You don't really get a great bounty like Criterion, which is another reason why Criterion is king, because Criterion is, every once in a while, yes, Criterion will release something that's kind of bare bones, like Stalker, unfortunately, but a lot of their releases have a decent amount of supplements, like a good 4, 5, 6, and they don't go out of print. So it's an unfortunate thing about Eureka, but I get it. They're a smaller label, they got a smaller market, they can't afford to go all out consistently. So, and another reason, I think I touched on it before, yes, most the Eureka movies are region B. So if you got a region free player, and I highly recommend getting one, you open up a whole new world. And unfortunately, your wallet is probably not going to be happy about that. So the Eureka Classics label is different from Masters of Cinema. Yes, they do have some classics. I mean, it says classics, but it's not always classics. It's like a mixture of some classics, but also cult movie. It's like maybe closer to Indicator, I would say. So they got like The Specialists. They got a couple Jackie Chan movies, a couple Kung Fu movies. I think that's where they have like Wheels on Meals. Once Upon a Time in China, which I really want to get because I'm kind of worried that one's going to go out of print soon. So I do have a couple of those on the way, The Specialists for sure, but it's mostly the Masters of Cinema that I'm really more of a fan of. So let's get into the movies. So I'm going to start off with my 2 classic lines. So this is Inherit the Wind, La Bamba. And this one this was my first actual, not just Eureka, but my first Region B movie, if I'm not mistaken, because I really wanted this movie. If I remember correctly, it was Twilight Time that had a Region A release on it on Blu-ray, and theirs is out of print. It's going for a lot of money. So when I saw this on Amazon, like Amazon.com over here in the US, I got it, only to find out it's Region B. So I've had this. I had it for like a year to a year and a half before I finally even had a player. But it was a great motivator, and I love this movie. And it doesn't unfortunately come with a booklet, although that would be really nice. But it's definitely better than the Twilight Time release. So I'm very happy to have that. Next one is the Inherit the Wind, which is about the real life, I think it was Pennsylvania, controversy surrounding a high school teacher who was teaching evolution when it was illegal to do so. And it brought 2 of the most famous orators not just America at the time, but in American history. A famous lawyer and I think it was a senator who ran for president twice. I want to say William James Bryan or Brian Jennings. I'll put the correction down below. But essentially, it was turned into a play, which then was turned into this movie directed by Spencer Tracy or Stanley Kramer, and it's good. It's really good. It's great acting, great writing. I really enjoyed it. So I highly recommend, catching this. I know that there's a TV edition, a TV version with like Jack Lemmon and Kirk Douglas maybe. I'll correct myself if I'm wrong. And that one's also supposed to be good, but definitely this one is the most famous one. And it was really good. It also has, I think what's funny enough is I didn't realize it, but for those, if you had, I don't think I've ever said it, but I used to be in the U.S. Marines, and we used to have this chant when we were going on hikes. Something about it was, it was good for Chesty Puller, and it's good enough for me. It was good for Daniel Daly, and it's good enough for me. Something like that, like motivation. I can't remember exact lines, but I was very surprised and delighted when, in the very early parts of the movie, there's a march from Christians talking about how if religion was good enough for Christian historical figures, like I think like Moses, then it's good enough for them, and then they, if it was good enough for Abraham, then it's good enough for me. So that was interesting to find out like where that came from, and maybe I'm wrong. Maybe it came from the military more than the Christian religion, but just the similarities between it two was really interesting and funny to me. So, Masters of Cinema. Sunrise, supposed to be one of the greatest not just black and white movies of all time, but just greatest movie, one of the greatest movies in general. I think for like a long time was voted as the greatest movie by the French cinema magazine Cahiers du Cinéma, which is probably not that great of a pronunciation. Next is Metropolis. I had a great deal on this really bent, I don't know if you could see bent, the steelbook. It doesn't really bother me. As long as the discs and the booklet is in it, I'm happy. It doesn't need to be pristine. And the next one that I got is The Passion of Joan of Arc. And the reason why I got this one, even though I have the Criterion one, actually I got this before I had the Criterion, but the reason why I bought this one was because even though the supplements aren't as good as the Criterion version, it comes with a 100-page booklet of just essays about the movie, essays even about the I think the score that was redone for it. It's also the Loduca version, restoring it. This is really what I got it for, and I'm very happy to have this, just for that. Next one is Onibaba, which is a Japanese kind of black and white horror movie. Really, really interesting movie that I really want to get to. This is one of the other ones, examples of not that great supplements. Video introduction, you get a full-length commentary, that's great, but 38 minutes of 8mm footage, and that's it. And then the 36-page booklet. So it's really like three things, but you know what? You can't knock the quality of the transfer, that's for sure. And this is, right now, as far as I know, the only Blu-ray edition of this movie for Region A or Region B. The Criterion, they have a DVD release of this, and so maybe I'll get that one day. I'll do the sacrifice that the Criterion subreddit is talking about and just get it on DVD, and maybe then like a month or two later Criterion will announce a Blu-ray. Nosferatu, another movie that I really need to get to. Same with Dr. Mabuse. I don't know it's German, I don't know what it is. It's 4 hours long. I don't know when I'm going to get to it. That's for sure, but I'll get to it. Same thing with Wings. Wings, one of the first ever Academy Award winner. First movie that had a paid product placement, and one of the first movies that showed an LGBT kiss, I think, or embrace, and it was really kind of very quick too. So, but another one that's very interesting to me. Legend of the Mountain, King Hu. I want to get the other ones, especially before they go out. The slipcases go out of print, just to keep them. I think it'd be really nice to have all of them that way. Except for, I think Touch of Zen is the only one that doesn't come with a slipcover. Last Waltz, supposed to be one of the best concert movies of all time, and I got this actually only just like a week ago, maybe a week and a half. No, less than that, like 5 days actually. And the reason why I got it is because it had always been on my list, and it says here special Blu-ray edition. So I had always thought that this was going to be, that this edition, was not limited at all, that it was going to always stay there. And so it was always something that I'll get eventually, I'll get on a sale. And then I didn't read it, I guess, enough, or maybe somewhere it says limited, because it was out of print like a week ago, and I had to scramble to find a decently priced copy before the sellers realized that it was out of print, and then, you know, bump up the price a lot. So I got it for a good deal. Very happy about that. Next movie, High Noon. And this one, I knew this was actually my first limited edition from them. I had to get it, considering its reputation, and it's the deserved one. It's a very good movie. It, you know, I went into this thinking that it was going to be very political, or it was just going to be kind of maybe on the nose about its political nature, because it is about the House of Un-American Activities Committee and its prosecution of liberal and communist or ex-communist Hollywood, you know, workers, especially like screenwriters and actors and directors. And it was there if you looked for it, but it was not, you know, overt, which is, I mean, they knew what they were doing. You can't make a movie about something and make it over the top about it. Otherwise, it really turns people off. People care about the story first and the characters first and foremost, and that's what this movie did. It was very successful at it. I really loved it, and I really want to devote a whole video to it. Unfortunately, it's out of print, so if you want it, you're going to get the singular movie with maybe a booklet and like 1 or 2 essays. Der Golem, another silent movie I haven't gotten around to. A Fistful of Dynamite, or Duck, You Sucker, by Sergio Leone. Out of print now. Again, I had to have it as soon as I realized it was out of print. Otherwise, I didn't want to have to spend a buttload of money like I've had to with some of these other Eureka out of print stuff. So I'm very excited to get to that one. Next one is, if you all have seen my first video, My Baby. Until I get, you know, Bergman Cinema, and even then, this still might top it as my favorite, most prized possession. I am so happy to have this, because like almost half of these movies are unavailable in any Blu-ray format. I think, if I'm correct, most of these are on YouTube right now that you could watch for free. So, you know, definitely check them out. But if you want to own them and you want to see some of these in Blu-ray, you're not going to be able to unless you buy this set. Or in some of these cases, I think like Ugestu had a single release that was paired with Oyu-Sama, but even that's out of print as well. And same thing with, I think, their version of Sansho Dayu. So, or Sansho the Bailiff, if you know the English translation. So, but this is so amazing. Again, doesn't really have that much supplements. You know, it would have been great if these movies were also filled with essays and commentaries, but it comes with a 300-page book. So that definitely makes up for all of the missing what could have been there. And so it's crazy that this thing was limited to, like, I want to say 2,000, you know, copies. But yeah, this is, I had to pay a nice chunk of change. Fuller at Fox is still in print, and if you've seen any of his movies, highly recommend them. Get it before it goes out of print. You know, you're not going to be unhappy with it, and if you are, sell it and you'll get a decent amount of money, especially once it goes out of print, because it has some these 5, I've only seen 40 Guns and House of Bamboo. House of Bamboo is okay. 40 Guns, I watched the Criterion version and I loved it. It charmed me. And one thing that I really want to finish and gotta watch is that this comes with a Fuller Life, which is a feature-length documentary about Samuel Fuller, directed by his daughter Samantha Fuller. And I think she even directed it in his style, if I'm not mistaken. But it has, you know, some of his colleagues and admirers doing voiceovers and reading from his book or his biography, his journals, stuff like that. It's, you know, this is a really nice presentation. I recommend it. And the last one that I have is up here is Eureka, the African Queen, their limited edition, which is still in print. And I highly recommend you grab it before it goes out of print, before the price skyrockets. It probably won't skyrocket, but just it'll get high up there, because this is a good movie. Another movie that I want to devote an entire video to, because, you know, it charmed me a lot. The romance, I think, is one of my favorite romances I've ever seen, because of what it represents and how both characters are. I'll go into it more, but essentially a lot of rom-coms or romantic movies will focus on the man having to deserve the woman and having to make himself better for her. And this one has that to a certain extent, but not as much. It definitely has has her improve and come out of her shell, and they both fall in love, and they both become better versions of themselves for each other to a certain extent. So I loved it. You know, it comes with a nice, like, 60-page booklet, some excerpts from books. And so, the unfortunate thing about this one, I think they mismeasured it, the width of the inside, by like a few centimeters or something, because it was a pain to get out, and I had to like really open the sides of the box to get it, and I was scared that I was gonna like rupture it. So what I have to do is, once I put it back in, I have to open this, put like a wire here that I close it on, snake the wire around, and then slide them both in together. And then when I get this out, the next time I want to watch it, I'm gonna have to like get like tweezers or something and like just pull it out, because it was a pain in the derriere to get it. So, all right, this is where I will leave you. If you have any recommendations, any Eurekas that you think that I should jump on, you know, right effing quick, let me know. I will certainly bump them up, because I like this label a lot. One of my favorite UK labels. So I am looking forward to seeing more of what they put out. And yeah, let me know if you guys got any remarks, any other movies, anything really you want to say. Put it in the comments. I'll read it. I'll respond in due time. I can be a little slow. So have a good night. Watch some good movies in this dire time. And I'll see you guys in the next video.